right, Glenn Greenwald has been one of the dauntless few. Americans have been told for 20 years Iran is just a few months away from a nuclear weapon. The world has heard this continuously. We only have a few months to bomb Iran to prevent it. So I cited a sample during my debate in NYC with Alan Dershowitz last year on whether the U.S. should bomb or not. And after all, folks, look, I'm tired of these frickin' wars. I'm so tired of all these wars. I mean, can't we have peace? Is that a bridge too far? Maybe it is.
Our national security as well. Now, let me just remind you of all the different times over the past, say, 20 years that we have heard over and over everything about Iran that Professor Dershowitz is trying to scare you into believing that they're just about to get nuclear weapons. They're weeks away. They're months away. We have to go bomb them. This is not something that only began recently. In fact, we've been hearing this exact same thing for 20 years, and none of it ever came true. So you should decide tonight whether there's any reason after hearing this for 20 years, you're now suddenly willing to believe that Iran is on the verge of getting nuclear weapons to the point that we have to go start a new war with Iran. Jeffrey Goldberg, who's the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic and a strong supporter of Israel, wrote a cover story for The Atlantic called The Point of No Return in 2010, where he told Americans it was more than 50% likely that the Israelis were about to go bomb Iran in the next 3 months because they didn't have more than months before Iran finally acquired a nuclear weapon. You can go all the way back to 2005, where NBC News reported the following. This is 2005, 20 years ago, quote, Israel should take, quote, bold and courageous action against arch-foe Iran's nuclear program, similar to its 1981 strike on the main Iraqi reactor, former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Sunday. Israeli officials have said that unless stopped, Iran will achieve the know-how to build a bomb by March of next year. In 2010, Jeffrey Goldberg said, based on my conversations with Israeli decision makers, in Israel, we heard this as 9 months from June. In other words, March of 2011, that's all Israel has. If we assume that nothing changes in these estimates, this will mean we have to begin thinking about our next step beginning at the turn of the year. The New York Times in 2012, President Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel told the UN that Iran's capability to enrich uranium must be stopped before next spring or early summer, arguing that by the time the country will be in a position to make a short, undetectable sprint to manufacture nuclear weapons. Reuters in 2015, CBS in 2018, BBC in 2019, all say exactly the same thing. Oh, we're only months away. We have for sure these intelligence photos with a big red arrow pointing at some random building that we have discovered is where Iran is about to proliferate their nuclear weapons. It's been happening over and over that you've been lied to for 20 years. Why would you suddenly believe it and support a new war against a country that's 3 times as large as Iraq, risking all of the major escalation and instability and huge war that we know will happen?
Exactly. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to Turncoat Don again. Turncoat Don, man. Like twice you get mentioned on the show. Shout out to Turncoat Don. This was at the Soho Forum in which this was being cited. So let's go ahead and play this.
If Professor Dershowitz's real goal in pretending to convince you he wants a pinpoint strike on Iran's nuclear program is in fact what he's admitted, which is a regime change.
I do.
You want to remove the government of Iran and replace it with a more pro-Israel government, right?
Yes, I would like to see regime change.
The reason people like Alan Dershowitz and the CIA and the West wanted to install the Shah and love the Shah and want to return the Shah into Iran isn't because they love democracy and want to spread democracy to the Middle East. It's because the Shah of Iran was a very close ally of Israel and a very close puppet, a very obedient puppet of the United States. And that is what this entire Middle East framework is about, is taking out the leaders who are democratically elected, making sure that the people of the Middle East have no say whatsoever by imposing dictators on those countries which we support and prop up, as we're doing in Saudi Arabia and Egypt and the United Arab Emirates and Qatar and Jordan. That is the real image in his own words. He's saying what I really want is regime change, and I want to reinstall the Shah of Iran into that country in order to spread democracy. Everything he's saying about what will happen in Iran, oh, everything will flourish in the Middle East, there will be peace in the Middle East, everything is going to break out. That was all said with Iraq. And the only real outcome of regime change in Iraq, aside from all of the deaths that it caused, was that there was a power vacuum in the Middle East that led to ISIS, and it drove Iraq further into the arms of the Iranians. And we spent 15 years and trillions of dollars in endless wars when we were told, like he's trying to convince you now, oh, it's a very easy operation. We're just going to be a month there. We're just going to bomb them, and then we're going to win, and we're going to walk away. We have to start thinking critically about all of this propaganda, thinking critically about what the role of our own country is in the world. And all of the devastation and misery and suffering and bloodshed and instability that happens whenever our government or our media convinces us to support yet another war. You got nothing.
Damn. But there's more to this, because Trump issued a nuclear deal, whatever. Trump issues nuclear deal threat to Iran. So, U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to reduce Iran's oil exports to zero if ongoing talks in Oman fail, which are aimed at reviving the 2015 nuclear deal. In 2018, Trump unilaterally withdrew from the accord that erased sanctions on Tehran in exchange for curbs on its nuclear program. If Iran's leadership rejects this olive branch, we will have no choice but to inflict massive maximum pressure, drive Iranian oil exports to zero, Trump said in a Saudi-U.S. investment forum, said on Tuesday. The U.S. president reminded the audience of the crippling sanctions he imposed in 2018, which he claimed left Iran's economy on the brink of collapse. They are virtually a bankrupt country because of what I did, he claimed. That's terrible to do. Okay. In 2023, UN Human Rights Council reported that Washington sanctions prevented Iranians from receiving vital medical care. The report noted that producers, shippers, insurers, or banks are reluctant to do business with Iran, fearing aggressive U.S. sanctions, enforcement, and penalties. This has led to fear, pain, and premature deaths, it added. All what sanctions do is hurt the people. All what it does. And look, you got what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank. You got Lebanon. You got Syria. You got Yemen. We have the aftermath of Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, how much more needs to be burnt? This is a failure of policy, constantly trying to continue ongoing war, and I get it. Humans have been doing this to each other since the dawn of time, but what's the breaking point? What's the point of it all? What really was the point? Because at the end of the day, we all have our expiration date. And we'll be joining the great masses of the undead, the walking dead. And each of us will be looking back at how our leaders led us to conflict, led us to hate each other. And you want to know what the big takeaway was? If only we spoke out sooner, perhaps we all could have lived a peaceful life. Maybe. Someday. Just not today. What's the incentive for bombing? What's the incentive for war? All what it'll do is cause the hatred and misery for man. War. It never changes. It never is anything good or positive. All what war does, all what it'll ever do, is cause pain and have man hate his brother.